We're now going to go for a consideration item 18-554, year-round homeless shelter and permanent supportive transitional housing and temporary warming shelter. Anastasia Wyatt, the planning manager, will do the report. Anastasia?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of City Council. Tonight, I'm here to discuss housing, as I usually do when I come before you. Tonight, I want to talk a little bit about the housing crisis that I know we're all experiencing in this community. We know that members of our community have been pushed to the edges in cars, on the street, and we know that this is probably going to keep happening. I'm going to show you some statistics throughout this presentation where you'll see how deep this problem has hit our community. So tonight I'm coming to discuss two housing items with you, and typically I discuss housing for low to moderate income people, 30 to 80% income, sometimes inclusionary and market rate housing. Tonight I'm representing the 0 to 30% housing. The need at the bottom that rarely sees any funds given to it, to that demographic. The housing needs in this community range, and you have all shown great leadership in housing. Chinatown, with the permanent supportive housing that was passed this year. We were able to get through a very difficult inclusionary housing discussion, and that has benefited members of our community that would otherwise not be able to stay and live in our community, to buy homes that are affordable at 30 to 80% income. And within that discussion, what struck me as I've been listening to a lot of discussions over the past week, especially, nobody has complained, not the developers, not the other people. We don't want those low-income residents living next to us in this neighborhood. This has been a fair opportunity for all, and every housing opportunity needs to be fair to all. It needs to be open to all members of the community, and it needs to be able to be built. And that right now is part of the assessment for fair housing that we're working on as a community with all of Monterey County. So the motion tonight, and maybe close your eyes for just a second, because I'm going to tell you something. This is a dream come true. We have unprecedented funding coming down to build more housing for the 0 to 30% income members of our community. And these two housing opportunities right now, we have $5 million in land donation from the County of Monterey, which has never happened. I've been fighting for a year for these two sites, and I can't believe I'm standing here and it's been approved by the Board of Supervisors. And we're ready to go. Tonight, it's up to you if we move forward, remembering those 0 to 30% income people who need housing the most in our community. Our goals are not only to build shelter, but also to build housing. And when this community went before the Board of Supervisors, we said, you know what? We're not just going to build a shelter, because a shelter isn't a permanent solution, but it helps people. It gets people who don't want to stay the night on the streets housed for a night, or many nights, as we've seen with the shelter at 111 West Alisal. We know members of our community have utilized that shelter pretty much 100% for the time it's been open. We've had a shelter downtown in Salinas for over 5 years, and it's working really well with very little complaint. And it's helped. We've seen families, children, women. So the goals with our shelter are to continue this work and to also help people guide them into housing. And the unprecedented funding opportunity is this HEAP funding and cash funding. So this emergency aid funding through the state that Ana Caballero just announced, and also another opportunity called the Community Emergency Solutions Grant. So why do we need a year-round shelter? This is the question that keeps coming up, along with why there. So those are our two big issues with this. We need a shelter. We have unhoused residents in our community. None of us want to see people on the street. We want to see them. We want to help them. All of our service providers, the county, the city, we are working very hard with our continuum of care to help people get outreach and get them into a shelter where they will be safe. Salinas residents that are homeless and experiencing homelessness, we have 1,361 in a point-in-time count that happened in 2017. The city of Salinas has 56% of all homeless residents in Monterey County. So our shelter is critical to helping homeless get off the street. And we also are going to build housing, which is a desperate need, just like we did in Chinatown. And if you've been there, it's really exciting. You can go see it popping up right now. And that's going to house 88 people. We're going to continue that momentum because we know we need 605 beds just like that for people in our community. Children experiencing homelessness in Monterey County, these are some of the statistics that where we need to see this housing crisis has driven people onto the streets and will continue. And there was another slide where we could see even farther back besides 2010. 2010 is what I'm showing you here. We had 1,704 students and families experiencing homelessness in the Salinas schools. We are now at 4,457 in 2014, and that number is now in all of Monterey County, 9,000 students. So we have to continue to build housing. We have to take every opportunity we can get to build housing, every location, every site, anything we can do to house the 9,000 families. I know Ana Caballero just talked about families that are having to move around. Well, the homeless families are having to move around too. They can't have a stable environment to learn in if they're moving all around the community. They don't know where they're going to sleep that night. They can't do their homework. So we're also working with the school district. I'll be there on Friday to start discussions about how can our funding, these great funding opportunities, tie into the school district. Who will utilize this shelter? Well, we know right now that the shelter is fully utilized and that we need it. We currently have demographics in the shelter, and it's about 30% children, 30% women, and 30% men. So we're seeing women and children being the majority of people in that shelter. So this MOU is establishing roles and responsibilities for two sites for the shelter. One site will be for the shelter at 855 East Laurel. The second site is at 1220 Natividad, and that's where we hope to build the permanent supportive housing that's needed. And the Board of Supervisors unanimously approved this resolution for the two sites, delivering them to the city on September 25th. So why were these sites selected? And this is when I've been out to 2 community meetings about the shelter so far in the past week. This is the biggest question we're getting. Why were these sites selected? They were selected because there aren't many parcels that are large enough in our community that we can build housing and shelter, and to build it at the adequate size that we need. Additionally, this is an in-kind donation of approximately $5 million from the county that they're offering up to the city. I asked the county, can you please give me some sort of appraisal on that amount? And I can tell you I've worked with MidPenn, and we were looking at a site that might be suitable for housing on Sherwood. And it was over $5 million, and it was about the same size as the site that we're going to get for the shelter. So that was just one site, and it had so many issues. We weren't able to move forward with it for housing, so it wasn't adequate. I've worked with Chispa. We're trying to get another site right now for some more low to moderate income housing. It is very difficult when I work with all the developers, interims like, give us a hotel, give us something. We're always looking for sites, and it's not an easy thing to do. So to have a site handed to the city, 2 sites, not just one. They went along with my crazy idea when I said, oh, $60 million, we'll build housing in a shelter, and they weren't very happy with me that day, but they gave it to us, so thank you. So this is the difficulty of finding the right size, the right zoning, the ability for us to actually build this shelter and more permanent supportive housing. And I can tell you, I already have housing developers ready to go. We've talked to them, we're ready. So as I mentioned before, the value of the land for each parcel here is estimated at this point until a formal appraisal is completed. The MOUs between the city and county, this is another thing that's been brought up in the public meetings, is we didn't know about these sites. Well, we've been working on these sites, and we have been at Board of Supervisors for over a year now. And I was there at the Board of Supervisors on September 26th, where 1220 Natividad Road was a site that came up and that they were willing to work with the city on. But then we came back and said, it'd be better if we had a shelter on one site and housing on another. And they came back and said, fine, here's 2 sites, which is unprecedented, along with the funding that we're looking at now. It's almost like all the stars are aligning. We've got this incredible grant from the state coming through where $5 million, we're estimating the cost of the shelter could be $5 million to construct. All of that not coming 1 cent out of the county budget that's tight or the city budget that's tight. Not only do we not have to pay for the land, but maybe even building the shelter. We're going to be able to apply for funding to get this shelter built. And we're talking $10 million here. Okay? So as you can see this timeline, we've been before the board, the city council, multiple times. The funding for the shelter, as I mentioned before, is through this California Homeless Emergency Aid Program. And we will be able to apply. We're working with our continuum of care with the county. A lot of them are here today, so thank you for coming and supporting us in our pursuit of this opportunity. And we will have our application, we can give our application to the state by May, and then we'll be able, or May, by the end of December, and we will get the funding very quickly after that. So if you're wondering how long is it going to take for us to get going, it could be pretty quickly. So we're very lucky. Like I said, it's just everything's aligned over the past year when we've been working hard to say, let's build a permanent shelter. Let's end the, let's find a permanent place for this. So the shelter operations is another big issue that comes up. People want to make sure that, again, from the public hearings, they want to make sure that their children are safe when they're walking to school, that we impact the neighborhood in a positive way. So this is where we've come up with shelter operations needs to make sure that we're working with the neighborhood. And all of this right now, we're just at the precipice of going forward and jumping off and doing this. And we will continue the public participation. We will continue to work with the public, with the neighborhood, to make sure that what is built is what's right for the community. So we know we've had security as a request for the Alisal shelter, and that's worked really well. No one's heard complaints at all. transportation for the shelter residents. We want to make sure that those residents that are in the shelter are able to go to services around the community. So there will be transportation, storage for their possessions, site maintenance to make sure that the surrounding community is impacted in a positive way. And all of this and more can be determined through further community engagement that, rest assured, we will further that engagement. The housing, like I have Moongate Plaza up there, which I said before is 90 units of permanent supportive housing, 88 units for 88 individuals. The 2 other units are going to be for manager units. That's a great start, and I hope we can get at least 90 more units or more. So these are examples of other housing opportunities in other communities. So again, this is just discussing that we as internally have met. We've also, as a community, we are working with the continuum of care, and we've been holding several meetings so far, and we're going to continue to do that. So under CEQA consideration, currently, this is not a project, it's just a decision. This agreement goes along with our homelessness goals, our housing goals as a community. We brought together, we've talked about all sorts of housing, farm worker housing, inclusionary. This is another type of housing for another income group. We are now able to hit not just our low to moderate, 30 to 80%, our market rate, but that 0 to 30%. It's a different model for a housing type that maybe we're not used to, but it's an opportunity for people to have housing at a 0 to 30% income. Fiscal impact, again, this is something that we can get funding for this at this time if we move fast and work as fast as we can. And the county has already given us a $5 million boost with 2 parcels. So the recommendation is that we move forward with this MOU with the county to have permanent supportive housing at 1220 Natividad and a shelter at 855 East Laurel. That's the end.
We're going to step out of line here a little bit. Supervisor Alejo, would you like to address the council as chair of the Board of Supervisors?
Thank you. I'm passing out the daily census for the months of July, August, and September of our shelter, so you can see how many men, women, and children are utilizing our current shelter almost at capacity every night. The other document is a list of current shelter services that do exist in the Monterey Peninsula, because that's being brought up. What services exist there? We have several day and night shelters and parking programs that already exist in the peninsula, and we're going to do more. Mr. Mayor and council members and your staff and members of the public, on behalf of the Monterey County Board of Supervisors and our staff, we are honored to be with you today in collaboration for this important project for permanent year-round shelter and transitional housing that we hope to accomplish together with you. Today we have staff from our county CAO office, our resource management agency, our Department of Social Services, and they're here to answer any questions that you may have on our part. We do have an opportunity before us today to do something great for our most vulnerable residents, the majority who are women and children that are currently utilizing our shelter, which is that safety net when people have nowhere else to go. In these chambers today, we know that there are going to be folks here in support, some residents who have concerns. But I think we can speak today with civility, with compassion, and dignity for our poor and our homeless, as we are all God's children. The homelessness crisis in Monterey County is not unique. Every city and county in California is having the same tough discussion right now. They're having to make the same tough decisions. The answers are not quick, they're not easy, and there's always a lot of concerns from our local residents. But the reality is that this homeless crisis affects all of us. There are our neighbors, people from our communities, and the reality is that many more of us are only a paycheck away from also being homeless in this very expensive area to live. And that fact should humble all of us. Our partnership with the City of Salinas and our search for a permanent shelter, as was stated by staff, was not recent. It was not new. We've embarked on finding a site for a permanent year-round shelter together since at least April 2017. Since then, we have had numerous meetings. We visited numerous sites. We visited other counties like San Francisco, Fresno, San Benito County. We had council and supervisors meetings, as was stated, most recently in March and May of this year. We had town halls on July 31st and most recently on October 1st. And even I had 2 supervisor constituent meetings in East Salinas as well. But I'm here today to also listen to the comments and concerns from the public, because their voices and their participation are critically important, because our homelessness crisis is not going to be solved by the city or the county alone. This crisis requires every person, every business, every church, every school, and every organization to also be part of the solution. So I welcome that participation. Our crisis is so severe locally and throughout the state that even if we achieve this proposal before us today, we will still have to do much more work in the years ahead. And I want to let the public know that we are simultaneously working on plans for an overnight shelter and expanding safe parking program in the Monterey Peninsula. We're also working on plans for South County. We are trying to address homelessness needs in all parts of Monterey County. But I'm glad that finally our governor and our legislature are stepping up. They're giving local governments the financial resources to do more, to build more, to house more, and to serve more. On top of the HEAP and the cash funding, we also have good opportunities with Propositions 1 and 2 that are on the ballot this November, a $4 billion affordable housing bond. Prop 2 is a $2 billion Lead Me Home, homelessness, housing, and infrastructure bond. We also have Senate Bill $2 that are going to be coming to local governments. So we'll have tools in our local government toolbox to get more residents off the streets and into homes, because housing is a human right. I want to especially thank our Mayor Gunter, Councilmember Davis, your tremendous staff, which I really respect, Megan and Anastasia. I've worked with a lot of city and county and state legislative staff in all my years of politics, but you have some really amazing advocates before you today. And I also want to thank Supervisor Phillips for their leadership, and I look forward to continue working with all of you and the public to make good, needed changes for our most vulnerable residents here in Salinas and throughout Monterey County. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Supervisor. We'll now go to council members for questions. Councilwoman Craig.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Anastasia, for a really comprehensive report. And I don't want to lose sight of the fantastic options that we have here for federal funding, and particularly with the MOU with the county. You know, it's interesting, depending on the topic, we're either fighting with the county or we're working beautifully with the county. So it's good to know that in this particular case, the relations between the city and the county have greatly improved over the topic of homelessness. And I credit Supervisor Alejo and Supervisor Phillips for really pushing that agenda forward. So thank you. I do have a couple of uncomfortable questions to ask. The city of Salinas pulled out of our funding after 5 years of the temporary warming shelter at 111 Alisal here this past year, and that was really to sort of force, and I'm going to use my own terminology here, but force the hand of the county to kind of really come forward and work collaboratively on a long-term solution. The HEAP program was a great opportunity. I have some concerns about continuing the temporary warming shelter at 111 Alisal. I know in the report it says that we have $200,000 of ESG funding to help pay for that. I'm curious to know what our contribution per month that would be to continue the warming shelter while we build a more permanent long-term solution.
Right. Thank you for your question. We do have right now allocated about 200,000, right under like 198, to continue that shelter for the 18-19 fiscal year.
So for 12 months. It's my understanding, though, that our cost out of pocket is about $30,000 to $40,000 a month. At least that's what it has been for many years. So if I'm doing the math correctly, that's only about 5 months worth of cost for a temporary shelter. So where's the rest of the money coming from?
Right. Currently, for the past couple of years, because of an additional grant through the state that we were able to obtain for emergency solutions grants, nothing has come out of, for the shelter, out of the city budget. It's all been through the grant. And so every year I carefully make sure that we fund it ahead of time. And that's what you're looking at is our 18-19 funding that went through our action planning process for both state and federal funding. And I have to mix it because I have caps on one type of funding for shelter and caps on another type of funding. So we've been luckily able to manage that without any additional city funding. And your math is correct. I think the county, we've had a recent discussion about, making sure that we fund the shelter from here on out, for until we get to this building of our final permanent shelter. And I'll continue to keep doing what we're doing with our emergency solutions grant, with other funding that we know is coming through the state. So I keep it planning, yeah.
So to make a short story long, so is it that you are applying for additional ESG grant funding to add to that $200,000 set aside that we have for the temporary shelter?
Not at this time, but I will be looking at other funding sources as they're needed. So I know that the contract the county is working on right now is through February, and our funding can last, I think, up until about April or May, or actually July, the federal funding, and the state funding can go even longer. So we'll work with all the funding sources to determine how much more is needed. But at this time, we have our commitment.
We have the first 5 months committed for the temporary shelter, and we got to figure out where the remaining months are coming from.
Sure, yes.
Got it. Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Any questions, Councilmember Villegas?
Reserve for comment.
Councilmember McShane.
Anastasia, why is the city the lead?
I think, are the lead for the actual RFP.
Yeah.
And the county has been leading with their RMA contractors and engineers on the site investigations, the environmental investigations.
For the permanent or the temporary?
For both. And they also are going to lead in the actual help us with the construction. What we're going to work with is the service component, and that's where the outreach is going to happen. That's where the city is going to put a heavy emphasis on. We need to work on the outreach. We also need to work with the county on how are we going to build the shelter. There's a lot we have to do. We've got to start talking. We have been in talks with other communities. What worked with your shelter? What worked with your shelter? So,
no, of course we're going to work together.
Right.
Let's make sure I understand it. So who is the lead? Whose name is on it as the lead? As the developer, I guess.
It's a combination between, I think, both the county and us. I think we're going to lead more in the services aspect, and the county's going to lead more in the construction aspect for the shelter. When it comes to the housing, then I think we're going to be leading that as well. We're going to be working with, we're going to have an RFP out. We're going to work with all the housing developers. I already have a few interested and who will be ready to go so that we can get the housing built. And we're expecting that to be probably a TCAC project.
Yeah, I'm more interested in the temporary right now. So let's focus on that. Just so it's clear. So the temporary shelter across from the post office is going to be there for 2 more seasons.
That's what we expect.
Like, is there any chance it could move in 12 months? I mean, is there any incentive to get the temporary shelter up and moving faster than that?
I'm optimistic, but that I don't think could happen in 1 year. I think this is going to take the solid 2 years for us under all the best terms that we can hit the ground running, say tomorrow. We have to meet the 2-year time frame because of the funding requirements under HEAP if we're able to utilize that funding to move forward, which is our hope.
Help me wrap my hands around that, because I know there's countless agricultural operations that throw up a few portables in a matter of a month. Mm-hmm. So just help me better understand that it's going to take 18 months to get something temporary put together.
Yeah, we're looking at a stick-built structure,
Something constructed with a foundation.
right? And, it is going to be we want a permanent structure. If we end up in a timeline where we've talked about sprung structures, that could be also an option. But that site, the 855 East Laurel, has, it's pretty much more ready to go than the 1220. The 1220 has a building on it. There's going to, a lot of...
1220 could be 10 years away.
I hope not.
Could be.
Could be, but I think we can move a lot faster than that.
But the temporary one is the one that we know we can go on. But even then, it's going to be foundation, sticks, bricks, mortar.
It's going to be tight, but we've got to do it, which is why time is critical right now. And if we want this funding to fund it, and we don't want to have to come back, in another few months and find another funding source, this is the opportunity. We have the application due to the state December 31st. So we really need to work with the coalition, with our county partners to move things forward in the right direction starting tonight.
And you mentioned in your presentation that you're working on other locations for shelter, temporary, homeless shelter, because we're the only game in the county, right?
There are other types of shelters, small, run by nonprofits. This would be the only municipal county shelter. We have the only one in the county. San Benito in our continuum also they were able to get a $5 million grant to build their shelter.
Yeah. Okay, and maybe just a word or two on the opposition. I mean, I can't imagine everybody here is in support. What would you say you can summarize as feedback from the surrounding community?
Right, and like I said, I've been to 2 community meetings in a week on that.
Has it all been a bed of roses?
I'll have to tell you what, one little girl came up to me last night after the meeting, and she said, "You have a very hard job." That was from the mouth of an 8-year-old, so it lightened the mood.
Yeah. And how do we mitigate that?
Sure. I think, we really need to listen to the community, and we need to take the community's their worst fears are what they're expressing to us right now. My children won't be safe walking to school. I want to make sure that our homes are safe. I want to make sure that this doesn't impact our neighborhood in a negative way. These are the things I'm hearing in our community workshops, especially last night. It was the school district who asked us to come. It was their workshop. We came to answer questions, and that was what a lot of people brought up. They said we have a lot of drugs and crime already in our neighborhood. How do we don't want to have that more impacts. So when we're looking at, how we do our community engagement, and when we look at the shelter operations, just like this shelter on 111 West Alisal, all of us can agree it's worked out pretty well. We've had security 24 hours a day, which is something that was requested. There have been some privacy barriers so that there is privacy, and those are things that we can build on. And when we're working on a shelter, when we're discussing with the community, this is where I think we can strengthen this neighborhood in the process. We can provide, we'll have a service provider there. If the residents or the schools have a problem with someone who needs help or is acting the way that they shouldn't outside, they have somewhere to call. Hey, can you get a social worker out here? Can we get some help here? I think those are things where we need to look at how do we strengthen this community as we go forward? And how do we make sure that the kids are safe and they're able to walk to and from school? Those are the concerns.
Last question, so I can wrap my arms around this. This stick-built, permanent, temporary structure.
Could be permanent, could be temporary, yeah.
Well, it sounds permanent to me if it's got a foundation and walls and it's not on wheels or a portable or something. So how many square feet approximately? I know you don't know, you put some fancy slides, Marin, Santa Barbara, Orange County. Approximately how many square feet, how many bodies? Are we talking 300 individuals max occupancy or 80?
I think we're looking at about 10,000 square feet, which is roughly what it is now. And I think we're looking at what's been discussed is 80 to 100 people.
Cool. Okay, that's all. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anastasia, thank you for the presentation tonight, and thank you on the first for coming out with the mayor and I and a lot of the residents from the Creek Bridge area. And I'll take full responsibility about the location. It was my suggestion. I didn't realize there'd be that many people out there. Unfortunately, there was standing room, but the public participation was, I think, maybe the second highest in at least in the recent history that I can remember of city council town halls. So to the public for coming out. I've heard a lot of feedback, both positive and negative, and I was kind of in the middle, still kind of am. I have my concerns like everybody else does, as I live in the area as well. But I'll say that the feedback overall is much better than the roundabouts on Riker Street. So that was I was trying to get a rise out of Councilmember McShane, but it didn't work. My question for you is there seemed to be a little bit of miscommunication or maybe some confusion as to what we're doing here tonight as far as this MOU. And it seemed like from what I was getting there was a panic, for lack of a better word, that this was going up, it's going up quickly, and we didn't seek any community input, and issues like security, the cleanliness, the drugs are a major concern. So that's still to come. We still haven't even crossed that bridge yet, correct?
I think we will have further discussions with the community. We've begun those discussions, which is really good, and a lot more we need to have a lot more community input, definitely.
So tonight's vote, and just so the public and those watching at home, isn't that we already have a plan ready, we're going to start building tomorrow as soon as we make our vote tonight. That's not the case, correct?
Correct.
So the MOU is just basically an agreement, and I don't know if Mr. Corpus wants to chime in on it, but it's just an agreement that both the city and the county are going to work together. And we've located two parcels of land that fit the needs, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and so to move forward in the process, obviously there's going to be some CEQA issues because we're going to be building a structure. So that's going to have another opportunity for community input. I believe it's 30 or 60 days for CEQA once the report gets published. Then we're probably going to, before even that happens, what's it going to look like? And we'll probably do some more community outreach to show some potential designs like we did the police station to get public feedback on that. And then also to hear concerns over security and to come up with a better plan. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so there's going to be multiple opportunities moving forward. So why is it important that we vote yes or no today on this?
The most important thing for me right now in our perspective is timing. That lets the Leadership Council know that, hey, this is a major priority, that we want to fund this with this crazy HEAP opportunity of $5 million. So that's the number one reason why this is so important tonight. Number two is to, I think, show and demonstrate to our community, everyone, that we're moving forward, that we're taking action to build more housing, to build a permanent shelter, and to keep moving forward on assisting people who need help in our community. That's what I think is.
And as far as the money is concerned, this $12.5 million to the HEAP, which has been released by the state, when's that deadline to put in that grant? Or put in for that grant?
Right, that deadline is December 31st.
The end of this year?
Yes.
So if you don't get that in, we're not going to get it. We may lose on a great opportunity to be able to fund this project, which is needed.
Right.
In which case we'd be no better off than we are now.
Right, and another thing with the funding is if we succeed at spending this money, typical government funding, right? If you spend it all, you get more, right?
Well, we'll spend it if you can get it. Trust me, that's how government works.
So we're really on a deadline. Okay, not only do we need to get the grant in, but we need to make sure we have a plan to spend that money so we can get more money. And I do expect that there will be more. So whatever isn't spent in this first round of HEAP and CASH is going to come back around and be distributed to everybody else in the state. So if we can step up and say, hey, we can spend money, we're ready. I know I can. So if we can do that, we have more money potentially on the table for more projects, which we need.
We desperately need more housing, especially low and very low income housing.
Right.
And right now, like you said, the 0 to, what was it, 38% income level or 30% income level, we have nothing right now. And so this would be a great opportunity. A question for you regarding any other outreach that you've done. You said you've talked with the Salinas Union High School District?
Yes, we've been in talks with the Salinas district. I'm going to meet with them on Friday. Everybody's welcome if you want to come. We also did some outreach for the cash program. My staff, all of us went out. We interviewed homeless individuals, those experiencing homeless in our community. We want to know what are their needs if we do put up the shelter. So that was that's something we really need to take into consideration too. And they're the people that have the least voice in our community. So we have to go out to them and make sure that we hear their voice and hear what they need. And we went out to Chinatown. I interviewed 6 people. My staff each got 6 to 10 people that we interviewed. We were lucky enough to hear everyone was willing to talk to us. All of us, except one person, had one person who said they didn't want to be housed. Everybody else that we interviewed, every single person I interviewed said, I want housing. So they're ready. I've been out there many times, talking to those experiencing homeless on Soledad Street, and everybody every time has said, we want housing. They want housing. If we do the shelter, they need a dog run. I was lucky enough to be out there on a day when there was a lady, a community member, who just gives out dog and cat food because there's a lot of dogs and cats out there. And she was talking to them about veterinary services and how she could help. One of the dogs was pregnant, and as soon as she has the babies, to make sure that the dog is fixed. So these are some of the things we found out. We also realized that there are farm workers on Soledad Street, farm workers who don't have housing, and they're contributing. This is another just demonstration of the tightness of our market. People have nowhere to go. People are working. They're doing whatever they can to survive on the streets. Another, we got a lot of good information that we can use to help with the shelter, what we need in a shelter.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of need in the community. Last question that I have for you is there's going to be a lot more. Not only is the community going to have multiple opportunities to participate and get feedback, and not only the look of the building, but also maybe the services or the concerns as far as security and the cleanliness of the area. And this council is also going to have many more votes moving forward, much like we did the police station, correct?
Yes.
So after the SEEK, we votes on that, votes on how it's going to look, and throughout the process that we did with the police station and the library. So not only will the public get a lot more opportunity for input, but this council will also have many more opportunities to vote on this particular project before it's completed as well.
Correct.
Thank you.
And if you don't mind, I want to just say one thing about when I was visiting Santa Cruz's tent shelter that you've probably all heard about. It's in a neighborhood right next to houses, and they were kind of laughing because the house right next door is a college house, and they throw beer parties like every Friday night. So the homeless there go out and clean up after the rest of the neighborhood. So there are ways that and everybody's okay now. There's this fear that stems up. Everybody's mind goes to the worst thing that could possibly happen. But sometimes we have to start thinking, well, what's the best thing that could possibly happen? What can we do here in the shelter operations to help the neighborhood experience something very positive rather than their worst fears? And I think we can manage those expectations to even help the community raise their expectations. Wow, we can have a new building here. We can maybe have more housing. A lot of what we heard last night was people are living in garages. People there had 2 to 3 families living in one house. We know that, the farm workers and the ag companies right now are really out, taking out residents from single-family homes to hotels. So we've got to work together on all of our housing issues. So we meet the needs of that neighborhood and we raise their expectations. Let's start talking. I want to talk about ways we can benefit this community.
Councilmember Barrera.
Ms. Wyatt, you always do a tremendous job doing these reports. You do have a difficult job, and I commend you for your hard work. This is very good work that you've done. Before I ask critical questions, because I will, if there are families here that are listening, and especially children, that are using the shelter, I just want to say I'm going to be asking questions that may be uncomfortable. Nobody is closing the shelter here, but there's questions that need to be asked. So children, if you're using the shelter, you will have a place to sleep. Your mom and dad will have a place to sleep. So don't get scared because of certain things that you hear as I ask questions. We want to make sure that you're safe. That's our priority. There's good police officers here that want you to be safe. You have Mr. Jesse Armenta that works on a daily basis at the shelter. They want you to be safe, but I have to ask questions. This is a political arena, and I will not ask county questions because I do not, if I'm gonna get in a fight with anybody, we'll go in the back shed and take care of business. But today I'm gonna ask questions for the city. So please, do not be afraid because you will have a place to live, you and your family, wherever the shelter is. With that said, Ms. Wyatt, I'm going to ask you questions, and I'm going to also ask Mr. Corpus, and I'm going to go by the brochure that you put here together. At the Finance Committee meeting, which was, could you put the in your slide the meetings, right before the CEQA report?
Sure.
Please. Community, yes, thank you. Under the question, where were these sites selected? I asked a question at the Finance Committee, I believe, I don't remember exactly what, September 17th. Is that when it was, the Finance Committee?
Yes.
Pónmelo para atrás, por favor.
Sorry, I'm just trying to find the...
You're too fast for me.
I know, and here's some of the council and the county.
Yes, I don't want to go there. I want to go to the other one.
Okay.
Because I wasn't there with the
Sure.
county. And I do appreciate the partnership.
It's okay.
Right there.
Okay.
I asked a question to the mayor and I'll ask Mr. Corpus to answer this, please. This brochure says these are the only sites that were vacant and that adequately sized. I had asked, what about Fort Ord? And I'm going to ask in public again, why not Fort Ord? That Chispa was built in Fort Ord. Hundreds, if not thousands of houses are being built in Fort Ord. Why did we not look, or maybe we did look at these sites, Mr. Corpus or Mayor?
Councilmember, we did look at Fort Ord. We talked to the adjoining cities, what property was available. We talked to Supervisor Parker, who represents that area, who said there was nothing available. There is a current site we're looking at for possibly motorhomes, but there was nothing available that would have created the space or the energy we needed. We currently have, based on the numbers, over 1,000 homeless in the city of Salinas. So we would have displaced them and put them in a location where there are no services.
Okay.
And as we looked at the location, it was rather more difficult than it should have been. But I think in the future, you're going to see parking programs there, and they are currently working on several of those, and a good location for motorhomes. Sir?
Thank you, Mayor. On the, in your report, and I don't know if this is from Ms. Wyatt or Ms. Hunter, Mr. Corpus, under the discussion, it says, as outlined above, city and county staff, along with Mayor Gunter, Supervisor Alejo, Supervisor Phillips, and Dan Baldwin of the Community Foundation, continued discussions over the last several months to determine the best path forward for a shelter. Ms. Wyatt just mentioned the Board of Supervisors, I guess, along with Ms. Wyatt and other staff, you've been talking about this for over a year. The community meeting says, you've been talking about it for over a year, and I'm trying to be a team player here. But your report says the first meeting for the stakeholders, for the residents, was held on October 1st at the first two, which was at the beginning of this month. But yet you've been meeting for over a year discussing this critical issue because it's very needed. We need a shelter. At what point I would have thought, you know what, we came to some kind of an agreement, let's take it out to the community that's really going to be physically impacted. I don't care if it's whatever corner of the city, but taking the stakeholders into consideration. Hey guys, this is what's happening. I know I keep hearing that there was community meetings. I don't remember any, and I'm not saying it didn't happen. Why didn't these meetings take place when there was an agreement, which is several months ago or over a year ago?
We began discussions, like I said, over a year ago, and the county, we were in the public meeting at the county to discuss this. We brought it to the city council as well. So again, all public meetings. And we had no agreement on a site during this period. Even though the county and us agreed with an MOU that we would explore this site, we have moved forward tremendously in that year in our relations and working together and getting we actually tried to come in May with another agreement to solidify things, to make sure we had the right site so we could engage the public. We're not going to say, oh yeah, we maybe this site, maybe that site. It's what do we, there are a lot of constraints, number one, but all of these meetings were in the public realm. And when we finally had that site solidified, that's when we said, all right, now we can finally go to the public. And even actually, ahead of solidifying it here, with the city council tonight, that we want to move forward on those two parcels. What we wanted, it was just a very interesting process to move forward with. And I know, if I'm, talking to Barbara Mitchell at Interim, she has the same issue. Whenever they're trying to locate a new housing development for anyone who's 0 to 30% or considered to have mental disabilities, they begin the discussions when everything's ready to go. When they know, okay, it's time for us to engage the public. We have a more concrete path to follow. We don't want to. The other two sites, like I said, that I've discussed with developers, and was the Sherwood site, $5 million, huge issues with the site, with a drainage ditch going through the middle of it. We would need to build a bridge that's about $2 million at least. Getting in and out of that location would have been really difficult. So that was one parcel we explored. Another parcel was Preston Street. It's a great little parcel, but again, we don't have the egress or ingress into that site. So here are two sites ready, and we're getting them without any cost.
Yes.
So,
and Ms. Wyatt, and I appreciate that, and that's valuable, because you are right. But now put yourself in a position, and again, I'm not going to contradict with what you're saying because I'm in line on what you're saying because it's critical. But in Salinas, as we heard, we're one paycheck away from being in a situation, and that is a true statement. But we know several families, you know, I know a lot of us, that 2 or 3 families get together to buy one home. Now you have this 2 or 3 families that are really trying to get ahead in the quality of life that we talk about, rich in land and rich in values. And then all of a sudden you're going to put a shelter in front of, close to their area, and I don't care what geographical area it is. You're making an investment, but yet I'm not part of the conversation. I'm not part of the dialogue. What do you guys think? And I think, Ms. Wyatt, this is where the confusion is at in the community right now. I have not heard anybody say we don't want a shelter. I have not heard anybody put down any homeless. But I've heard from people such as the school superintendent of the high school district, Mr. Burns. Now, if we want to call him a liar or whatever, I'm not going to go there. But he did say at a meeting, you know, I have a school here, and I run a school district, and I have homeless families, students that live in their cars as well. But I'm just as confused because nobody's told me anything. Now, we may take those words for whatever, but he did say that. Where I got concerned, and this is for you, Mr. Corpus, the city manager, what I understood, meets with the school superintendents. I don't know how many school superintendents we have, but the city manager or the assistant city manager meets at least once a month with the school superintendents. And here we have a superintendent with the biggest school district that says, I'm not even aware of this is happening, and it's right in front of one of my schools. What would we say to that, Mr. Corpus?
We say to them, council member, join the discussion, be part of the solution, and let's move forward.
Okay.
That's what we say to them.
Okay.
This is a difficult issue. 4,000 children in the school system homeless.
Yeah.
Nobody's fault.
Okay.
Nobody's fault on this dais or out there in the audience. As you say, circumstances change. For me, it's just one vote and I could be out in the street. So There you go. I want to tell you that the staff has been working earnestly. I don't know how many nights and days and weekends that we have put in, particularly Anastasia and Megan, over the issue of where, how to fund it, how to address a very complex issue that's facing every city in America.
Yes.
Without any tools, really, to solve the problem. We are putting our best foot forward. Now, you ask us about sites and when people didn't know. Back in September, when you approved the warming shelter, you told us, look for other places. Some of you actually visited places and recommended sites. You recommended sites in Chinatown. Supervisor Alejo went to 1220. They had some skepticism about it. Let me tell you what the county's issue is, just the same as the city would. They had a building at 1220. They have some other topographical, geological issues with that site. It's not a perfect site. You have to make some improvements. It costs them, this is what we learned in the last meeting with them before they approved the agreement, to move forward to agree to work together. This is to agree to work together. Nothing's been built yet. It would cost them about $1.9 million. $900,000 just to fix a little building. And whether that's HEAP funding or SES funding or any other kind of funding, that's a lot of money. And on top of that, putting a temporary shelter there was another $1 million. Plus all the CEQA work involved with that. What the county figured out, and this had not been another site, they had another site. They've mentioned this before. The staff had mentioned it. It had been brought up in the supervisors' meetings. at 855 Laurel Drive. There was never an intention to disguise it, not be transparent about it. What was interesting was to come to an agreement with the county over a site that could work, that would meet the state funding. As Anastasia's put out, we have a one-time opportunity. The county sees that the money they receive under the Lead Me Home program, about $1.9 million annually, isn't quite making it in terms of the results we want.
Yeah.
The population keeps going up, the situation becomes more acute, people get more angry, and they want a solution. So as the supervisor said, and as the mayor's commented, we need to keep working together. This isn't the perfect solution. We will still have homeless. But if we don't take a positive step forward, we will lose a major opportunity. The time is now for action. We are committed to looking at that slide where it says security, transportation, compatibility with the neighborhood. All those issues need to be discussed, and we will have time for that. As soon as this agreement hopefully will be approved, we'll be out tomorrow, setting up meetings, discussing not only with the community, but with the service providers. They're here in the audience. Coalition of Continuum of Care, they're here. The Coalition of Homeless Service Providers, they're here. The County Social Health Services, they're here. The Health Department and our staff. The reason we have taken a lead is we've been successful with other projects. And I think the county appreciates that expertise. But we can't do it alone. They can't do it alone. We want to work together. We are committed to working with the community, more engagement with everybody. Not just the residents, but business community, nonprofits, everybody that wants a seat at the table, including the school district, and we've offered that to them. There'll be many more meetings, many more conversations. And the good thing about this is everybody showed up. It's good that you're here. We're going to start the conversation. It needs to carry on. It won't stop after tonight. This is just the beginning. That's my answer, Council Member.
Mr. Corpus, I appreciate your answer, but I'm going to continue. To me, a conversation is when you invite me, hey, what do you think about this idea? Yeah, there are critical issues. There's got to be some critical decisions. And Mr. Corpus, if you'll remember at the Finance Committee meetings, I said, when I have to make a decision up here on the dais that's going to impact people's lives, whether for good or bad, it is important that they at least know the substance of what we're discussing with enough time so that they can give their own opinion. Now, we're going to have an argument here. I know some people are going to say, oh, he's running for whatever, and that's okay. But let me tell you what my motivation here is. Ms. Wyatt, and since we have, 111 Alisal? And in reading your report, you said that from 111 Alisal, even though over here it's going to be a beautiful building, you didn't say beautiful, but state of the art or whatever, the folks are going to be able to move over there because these are people that really need this type of service. It's going to have great services. Do you think Chinatown will be impacted in a positive way? Do we see something? If the city council, the majority votes for the site over there, do you see something happen? Because we have some hardworking small business owners in Chinatown that have been asking us for years, man, do something, and it's getting worse. But the city manager just said we've been successful at some things. Do you see Chinatown improving somehow?
I do, and we've been working countless hours. I was with our consultant till 9 o'clock right after the meeting we had last night. I called him up and from Urban Initiatives, and he's helping us with our cash application right now, which is due on Monday. And that's $1 million. And I've worked with the coalition to target Chinatown with that funding so that we do the best practices in that area. We've had discussions with Mid-Penn, which is the developer of Moongate Plaza, with the coalition, with our service providers, that a lot of the people on the ground in Chinatown, we've talked to our police, fire. We were just having a meeting with them last week as well, because it's going to take a really multi-pronged approach to make a really big impact. And Assemblymember Caballero said it perfectly earlier, that this funding, we need to make a difference. We have to show the state that we did something with all of this funding, that we impacted this emergency housing crisis that we have with this money. And the $1 million, if we can target Chinatown, what we need is to get a lot of the people off the ground into scattered site housing wherever they may need it. And again, when I talk to the homeless, those experiencing homeless on the street in Soledad, a lot of them are Salinas residents. They don't want to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Their families are here. I mean, I go and visit people and I know their names and I know who they are in that community. And the best practices that are going to help us target residents in Chinatown, we need to have a team. We need to have housing locators, housing navigators to help people. What are the needs you need? Do you need to get an ID? Do you need to get your Social Security? What do we need to do? We're going to have to get vouchers. We're going to have to maybe supplement vouchers with some of this cash funding. So we're putting together that plan as we speak, and we're going to target Chinatown with $1 million to make sure that that development, that $43 million Moongate Plaza development is successful, and that neighborhood sees the change that it's been waiting for in a very positive way, that we house the people on the street. We house them in Moongate, we house them throughout our community where they deserve to have housing.
Yeah.
Those are the strategies we need to take to make a difference. A shelter, we're going to shelter people for some time. But we're even working there right now. We put $90,000 into the existing shelter that HRC is Housing Resource Center, $90,000 to house as many families that were in the shelter who are ready for housing as soon as we can find housing for them. So a lot of the difficulty, we need to look at the gaps in our system, and some of the gaps are we don't have the housing locators. You might, be driving the streets and you say, oh wow, look, there's an apartment for rent. Could I get somebody in there that's on the street? We can, but we don't have a housing locator. We don't have the housing navigator to determine, is this apartment right for that person? Those are the gaps in this structure. Once we get that person into housing, we're going to need somebody who monitors and keeps working with that individual to make sure they stay housed and that they're moving forward on whatever it is, a budget, how to turn on and off a faucet. Some of people actually need those skills. That's what we've heard from people on the streets. They say, hey, we've forgotten a lot of skills about even living in a home. They've been on the street so long, but they want to do it. They have the drive to do it.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Mayor, I just have two more questions. One is for the city manager, and if you give me permission, the other one is for Mr. Reyes Bonilla, who is the executive director of running the shelter. And then after that, I'm done. Mr. Corpus, security, transportation, storage, ongoing site maintenance, how are you going to pay for that?
That will all be part of the HEAP funding. That's what the application is going to entail. There'll be programs dealing with each element there. I did talk to the chief here. He's here, and our police department's ready to participate in the security program to add their input, expertise, and advice. So it's going to take a team effort. Obviously, transportation, public works in our department, as well as the transportation department of the county is stepping forward. RMA, as the supervisor said, has that responsibility, and they're here. There's ongoing site maintenance. That's very important in terms of, keeping up the cleanliness and the security of the site. The storage for resident possession, I think that's one of the keys of a successful shelter and permanent housing is that you have storage for people. All of our lives we have storage. Sometimes many of us have too many things and not enough storage. So it's really important that when you're mobile, you can have your possessions with you. That's really key in terms of making a successful transition into other services in other homes. So all that you see on that chart is to be still determined. And it'll be part of the full grant application. And even after we receive approval of the grant, we still need to continue those discussions. It's a conversation with the whole community.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Corpus. And Mr. Reyes, when you I believe the mayor gave me permission. The city brochure says, Mr. Bonilla, since opening in 2017, and it's here on 111 Alisal, there have been no complaints at the existing warming shelter. What I understand, that's what the brochure says, no complaints, but the police department, which is another department of the city, says there was 105 complaints. I don't know to how drastic and to how light the complaint, and I even understand that you or your staff has had to call the police for certain complaints, and I'd like to get your feedback on that.
Yes, that is true, council member. That is absolutely true. I was in discussion about those calls last week. Our staff is trained that in any moment that either any other client, resident, any family member, any person in that shelter is either threatened or there's or themselves are putting themselves at risk, we're going to call law enforcement. And for the last 6 years, we've had a great relationship with the City of Salinas Police Department. They've always responded to us. We've gotten a lot of respect from them in the sense that we try to de-escalate everything before we even call. But when there's any moment that they're putting anyone at risk or themselves at risk, we're gonna make the call. I think there was 2 calls that they called it criminal, whatever that might be, and that might have been where they were either physically or non-verbally threatening a staff member, and so police were called immediately.
Thank you.
And council member, a lot of calls, as you can see, the population, the need of medical services. Yeah. So a lot of our individuals or families that have a lot of chronic diseases or any of those, we've made a lot of calls to 911.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you, Mayor, I'm done.
Thank you.
Anastasia, thank you for the report and all your hard work and the rest of the staff. But my question to you is, we've heard all the comments that have been made, and being the last person, I've heard all the questions, a lot of the questions that I wanted to ask you, but I have one. Can you tell me which cities have a police officer assigned to the shelters?
We visited Life Moves this spring, and the Bay Area cities, there were several there, and along with what Reyes Bonilla just spoke about, they've been able to reduce calls into police based on the work that they're doing with the community. And they say the calls if they're able to get somebody into the shelter, it makes it safer for both the officer and for the person that is involved in whatever they're working with. The police officers also have several beds in different shelters throughout the Bay Area where they know that if they have somebody who just needs to go somewhere for a night, they can do that. So there's a really good partnership going on with, the Bay Area cities. Redwood City was one of them. We visited San Mateo and Santa Clara County. So we've reached out to other police divisions, and they've been really willing to come to the table with us and meet with us and talk about, I have a picture, I can send it to you guys, about the reduction in call volume for police because of the proactive shelter and partnership that they have in that interaction. And if people feel safe, they act safer. And one thing that one of the police said in that meeting was, homelessness is not a criminal activity, but there can be criminal activity associated with it. Just like any other resident throughout the community, they can participate in activity that is unlawful. But to make that interaction safer for both the person and the officer is a big goal, and to reduce the call volume. So that's what we heard in the Bay Area.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Can you kind of quickly explain to the public that is here tonight? A lot of people don't know what the Moongate project is because I represent my residents from Soledad Street, a lot of the homeless. And I also want to real quickly, can you touch on, I see a lot of the pastors, the faith community, they're going to be part of this process of the decision making if we go forward with this project?
Sure. First, I'll talk to, I know Pastor Steve is here and a few other pastors that we've worked with. We definitely want to continue to engage our faith-based community. Working with Lauren, with the county, we know that we've asked the faith-based community to step up and assist with meals at the shelter, and they have been for years, actually. And I know that we can maybe expand upon programs that we're seeing in, the Monterey Peninsula with iHelp or other community type of projects like that. And Victory Mission has also stepped up and provided meals at a very reasonable rate to our shelter, which we're really grateful for. $3 a meal, roughly, right, Lauren? So that's a great opportunity. Moongate Plaza was approved and is now in construction very recently by this council, and this was a wonderful opportunity. I think standing in front of you now and being able to say we're building the very first supportive service housing development in Salinas of this kind is a model. It's been a model for the entire country. I have this magazine that it was in with 10 other cities in the United States. This was represented, our Chinatown and that development. 88 units, supportive services housing. A lot of our homeless community, people may have developmental disabilities, they may have physical disabilities, they may have a lot of different barriers that are keeping them on the street. And sometimes it's not the most, everybody thinks, it's prostitution, drugs, sometimes it's just something else that they're developmentally challenged. And once those people get older and their loved ones can't take care of them anymore, they end up on our streets. So we're talking about a very broad definition of people. They're all different. All of our citizens need housing of some sort, and we have to meet the demand and the need. And Moongate Plaza meets that demand of different, I've been talking to Mid-Penn about the makeup of that 88 units. Who's going to go into those units from our community? Is it going to be people on the streets of Chinatown? Well, I'm trying to get it cleaned up before that even opens and get a lot of people housed before we even open that next October or November. So if we can, that's one strategy, but this it will be supportive services housing, because we find that the chronically homeless in our community, which we have 605 chronically homeless, and this was the only population that really didn't increase much between 2015 and 2017. There was only an increase of 2 people. So that means everyone else out there that's on our streets, we can house them. They can work. They can function in our society. So we need to target the rest of the community, that our homeless community. We need to find out who are the veterans. We can house them with this funding. Who are the chronically homeless? Let's build them the housing, because we know we have to. And we're building Mid-Penn, Moongate, the very first one. Let's build another. The county is in on it with us. It's fantastic. We can probably get, let's hope for another 200 units. I mean, I'm already excited enough, right? So that's what the intent is. We've started it in this area. We're a national model with that Moongate development, and we're ready to do it again.
So, real quick, we'll see less tents out there.
I hope so.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions.
I got a couple of questions for you regarding the community involvement. I heard Mr. Burns' name mentioned. He showed up at our October 1st meeting, having been educated more about what was going on at a larger community meeting. And he said that they wanted to be involved, and he's willing to step up. I didn't see, not to throw any stones on the water for the Alisal School District, but what I found most unique was none of these people have school resource officers, and they're worried about the homeless coming on their campuses. That's very unfortunate. But have we heard from CCA, COPA, LULAC, Building Healthy Communities? I know most recently we've heard from the American Legion that they're willing to step up and help with this. Have you heard from any of these groups?
No.
Thank you. We're not going to open it up for public comment on this item and this item alone. I know that there are several groups here. If there's someone that's a spokesperson for a group, I would like them to step up. We can do this in 1 minute. That'll be great, City Clerk. I see we have a whole line full of people tonight.
Mr. Mayor and council members, thank you for your time tonight. My name is Andy Roush. I am a pastor at Northminster Presbyterian Church. I am one of those in the faith-based community that is supportive of this. This young lady would like to make a presentation on what she has done and what she has seen. Go for it, kiddo.
Hi, my name is Julia, and I am 7.5, like some of the children who live at the shelter now. This is one of the reasons why we need a shelter. No one should have to live on the streets. I volunteer at the shelter with my church twice a month, and I like volunteering. And I feel happy when I help others. Please support the City of Salinas working with the county to build the permanent shelter. Thank you for your time.
Good job. And I would like to read, if I may, one of my church members had to leave for a second job so that she can pay for her own housing, and she wrote this. As a food and safety microbiologist who serves at the temporary shelter in Dorothy's Kitchen, I am excited about the opportunity to cooperate with the county and move forward toward a shelter which will include facilities to safely store and refrigerate both food and medications. This capability will offer the possibility of reducing medical costs through prevention and, might I add, also shower facility for cleanliness. She said, I would also like to remind the public, assuming that the politicians on the dais are already well aware, that this is a great opportunity for funding, but when you are spending someone else's money, you are dancing to their tune. They call the shots in terms of strings and attached and timing. We need to move quickly. I am glad to see the emphasis on long-term systematic solutions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Pastor.
Anne-Marie Abadier. I represent the group of people who are the owners of the businesses at the corner of Laurel and Natividad. They were made aware of the project only on October 1st, so a person came to the center and talked to different people. They didn't have time to be at the meeting, only one person. And as a representative of the ownership, I just heard about it yesterday. So we would like to participate, and I have here a letter with signatures. And unfortunately, 20 or 21 people opposed it. So I just...
Thank you, and we look forward to your participation, ma'am.
All right, please.
I talked to the management organization for Creek Bridge Shopping Center. They were not aware of anything. And also the manager of the apartments for Creek Bridge was not aware of the project.
Thank you.
Good evening, City Council. Bill Harris, Creek Bridge resident. I'm here to speak in behalf of many of our Creek Bridge residents and North Salinas residents. They couldn't make it tonight, but I'm sure they would say the same thing as I'm about to say. Natividad Road, East Laurel, Drive, and Constitution Boulevard. It's crammed with traffic accidents galore. The police, the city hasn't been able to do anything about all these speeding problems that we have in Creek Bridge area. These three main roads, thoroughfares, Natividad, East Laurel, and Constitution, is out of control. These places are a boondoggle, and you're trying to force it down our throats. That meeting on October 1st was a farce. People,
Thank you, Mr.
not
Harris.
enough room. We couldn't hear what was said, and not enough people gave their opinion. I got a lot of opinions. I only have 1 minute. You keep on cutting us off, even at the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Your minute's up.
Thank you.
Chris Brewer here. I'm the president of the LAC Council 2055. I started receiving phone calls from concerned residences about a month and a half ago. They let me know that the homeless shelter was going to be moved to Laurel Drive, so I started checking around. I realized that there was no town hall meeting, so we took it upon ourselves to have our own town hall meeting on September 26th. And then the following Monday, we found out that the city had their own. I think the problem is everybody wants to know what's going on. I think a way to alleviate this anger is to bring organizations to the table, residents, and all those concerned. People are scared out there and concerned because this is their home. This is their retirement. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Adriana García. Primero que nada, quiero pedir más tiempo.
Adriana García.
Quiero pedir más tiempo porque considero que necesitamos más tiempo las mamás de Virginia para explicar.
First of all, I would like to ask for additional time because parents here from Virginia need more time to explain.
La junta de la que ellos hablan, nosotras la organizamos. Nunca hubo la información para que todos nos enteráramos. No estamos en contra del refugio.
The meeting that was held, that was talked about, we organized it. It wasn't something that, we're not against the homes.
Simplemente queremos que la ubicación no es la correcta. Eso es lo que creemos.
We really want to express that the location is not the proper location.
Tuvimos muy poco tiempo para juntar 378 firmas.
We had very little time to collect 378 signatures.
y la mayoría de la población que se va a ver afectada no tiene información.
And most of the people that will be affected have not received any information.
Creemos que el centro es necesario, pero no es la solución.
We believe the shelter is necessary, but this is not the solution.
Simplemente es cambiar el problema de lugar.
It's just a matter of moving the problem from one place to another.
¿Por qué el este de Salinas? ¿Por qué decidir el este de Salinas?
Why East Salinas? Why did you decide on East Salinas?
Teniendo conocimiento con nuestra comunidad ya pasa por muchas situaciones y problemas.
When you know our residents are going through a lot of problems already.
También tuvimos oportunidad de traer a nuestros hijos para que hablaran de las situaciones que han pasado en sus escuelas con este tipo de personas y nos referimos a ellos con todo el respeto.
We also brought our children so that our children could speak about the problems they have had with this type of residents, and we're referring to this residents with a lot of respect.
Cuando los directivos de la escuela han tenido que llamar a las autoridades porque los niños han sido expuestos a observar situaciones no adecuadas a su edad.
When the school directors have had to call the police because the children have been exposed to things that they should not be seeing at their age.
¿Cómo piensan trabajar con el distrito? Porque las fensas de las escuelas de esa área son muy cortas y creemos que nuestros niños estarán expuestos a más peligros.
So how do you plan to work with the schools? Because the area there, the schools are very close and our children are exposed to a lot of danger.
Y queremos que sepan que nosotras las mamás hemos organizado todo con nuestros propios recursos porque nadie ha brindado más información. Nosotras en esa área nos hemos encargado de que estas personas y otras pocas sepan la información. Necesitamos que lleguen flyers a las casas de esa área. Por favor, antes de votar, más información.
And we also want to tell you that we, the parents, have provided all this information with our own resources because enough information has not been provided. There are too many homes that are not aware of what's going on. We need you to send flyers to the different homes so that they are aware of what is going on.
Piensen primero en nuestros niños y nuestros
sus 2
jóvenes de
minutos se han
aquella área,
terminado.
Please consider our children before you decide.
Les entrego las firmas, por favor.
On moving the shelter to that area before you even vote. Thank you.
Gracias.
Para las personas que van a hacer comentario en español, se les va a otorgar 2 minutos, que incluye la traducción, ¿ok?
Sí, pues seré breve. Gracias.
I will be brief. Thank you.
Buenas tardes. Soy una mamá de la escuela Virginia Roca Barton.
Good afternoon. I'm a parent from Virginia Roca School.
Y mi preocupación como madre es la seguridad de mis niños.
And my concern as a parent is safety of my children.
Yo me dirijo en esta tarde a nuestro representante del este de Salinas que se tome 1 minuto de su tiempo para que haga una reunión con todos los de la comunidad.
And I'm directing my message to the person who represents us. If you could please take a moment and meet with all of us from that area.
Ustedes saben que tenemos un problema que no lo hemos podido combatir.
You know we have a problem that we have not been able to take care of.
Y es un problema muy grande.
And it's a big problem.
Y todos tienen conocimiento de ello.
And you all are aware of it.
Yo como madre estoy aquí porque me preocupa. Y también como residente del este de Salinas.
And also as a resident of East Salinas.
Todavía no está todavía el centro y ya se están viendo algunas cosas.
The housing is not even there yet and we're already seeing some things.
Ya no podemos caminar por las calles, ir a buscar a nuestros niños caminando.
We can't be walking the street. We can't go look for our children walking.
Porque están pasando muchas cosas que ustedes no tienen conocimiento de ello.
Because a lot of things are going on that you're not aware.
Yo te invito a ti, Scott, a que vayas, hagas una reunión con nosotros, con los padres de familia del centro escolar de la VRV y tomes un poquito de tu tiempo y el conocimiento de todos los padres lo que está pasando ahí.
We invite you, Scott, to meet with us, to meet with the parents from Virginia Rocket School and find out the things that we're concerned about and the things that are happening there.
Al poner este centro de refugio, nuestras casas se van a devaluar.
the value of our homes are going to go down with this shelter that you're planning to put there. Gracias. Thank you.
Gracias.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. I'm Dick Renard with the Faith Community. Two things real quickly. Warren Deacon Hoy, the outreach deacon and justice deacon of the Roman Catholic Diocese, is in favor. The Diocese of San Benito, Santa Cruz, Monterey, and San Luis Obispo counties are in favor of this MOU. Predominance of the Protestant side of the aisle is in favor of this, as they have been supporting the shelters in times past. Real quickly, Jack Calhoun, who many of you know, is a senior consultant to the Justice Department, the author of the 13 Cities for Peace and the National Youth Forum, once said that he has not witnessed a disparate county and city in the United States that works together the way Salinas and Monterey County does. Now, we're in the weeds. We're in the trees. We don't necessarily see that, but I appreciate Supervisor Alejo. I appreciate all of you working together. This is a vote for something much bigger than this issue. This is a vote for how we, as a populace, as a county, and the cities therein work together. Consider it that, please.
Good afternoon. I wish that tonight you would not take a vote. It seems like time is of the essence. December 31st seems to be the date of everything said and done. I want you to listen to the residents of the city, not just the east side, but along the side of the east side, we have so many complex already, apartments, buildings. Take it somewhere else, please. Our children need to see other things than great buildings. The streets are not being cleaned yet. And we propose a site like this to come along. There's no sidewalks on Laurel Extension. That is a problem already, when we already see them. I have homeless behind my yard. I'm not opposed to them. The thing is that we also have the working poor that live in 2 or 3 families to a home. That should be our solution first. From there, the stem comes of how proud we are of living in a decent home and going and making better choices than off the street. Thank you.
First, I'd like to thank everyone for listening to our concerns. Tony Barrera, you're awesome. I support the services and shelters for our homeless community. I am concerned about the 12.5. Is that going to be combined for San Benito County as well? Is that one big fund for both Monterey County and San Benito County? We already have high traffic pedestrian safety issues. A lot of lives have been lost on Constitution, a couple on Laurel that I'm aware of. And then when we're talking about safety measures, are we talking, I hear security. Is that translating into law enforcement? So let's say law enforcement and not just say security. Another thing that I'd like to talk about is Mr. Villegas. We've had a couple of meetings, and it's to do with Creek Bridge. You represent us, and you're not around. You're not active in our and your district. So I would appreciate when there's critical information, critical items, we'd appreciate your support. Thank you.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
Yo soy residente del este de Salinas y solo soy una madre preocupada por mis hijos que van a la escuela y no solo los míos, los de las demás familias que asisten a esa escuela, Virginia Roca Barton.
I'm a resident of East Salinas, and I am very concerned about my children. Well, not only my children, but all the other children that attend Virginia Roca Barton School.
Mi pregunta y mi opinión es, ¿por qué hacerle saber a la comunidad cuando este proyecto ya esté en pie? ¿Por qué no tomar en cuenta a la comunidad antes? ¿Por qué no preguntarle a la comunidad si está de acuerdo, si cree que es el lugar adecuado antes de poner un proyecto en pie?
My question, in my opinion, is why are you talking to the residents when this plan is already so advanced? Why didn't you speak to the community and get the community opinion when you were just starting the plans for this?
¿Por qué ponerla en pie? Y alguien de ustedes se ha tomado, quien ha tomado este proyecto, se ha tomado la molestia en tomar un poco de su tiempo y pasar por la comunidad para saber ¿cómo le diré? Experimentar todos los problemas que hay ya en la comunidad. Alguien se ha tomado el tiempo para experimentar y pasar por lo que está pasando en la comunidad para todavía llegar y ponernos un centro. No estamos diciendo que no, pero puede haber algún otro lugar. ¿Por qué las escuelas las ponen a las afueras de Salinas y el centro lo quieren poner justo ahí, donde hay mucho problema?
Taking the time to walk through our community and see the problems that we already have. Why do you put the schools outside the city? The city limits outside the city, but yet you want to put this shelter and this housing right in the center of the area where we live?
Ahí donde está la escuela ya no se puede caminar.
Sus dos minutos han terminado,
todavía no
señora.
llega, no ponen el centro y ya hay demasiado indigente. Solo quiero que se tomen un poco de su tiempo y pasar por esos caminos.
The location of the school is already bad enough for us to walk around that area, and so it's going to get a lot worse when you put the shelter there. So I would like to ask for you to go to our community and walk through the area. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Frank. I live in the 111 West Alisal shelter. I'm a senior. I have 2 grandsons and a granddaughter. I've been living there, here and there, in Victory Mission, Santa Sago, Ida, Dorsey's Kitchen. And I live with little children, boys and girls, teenagers, going to school, parents, their grandmothers and grandfathers at the home shelter, and I've been there since May, and most of us, we come to, I go to a lot of depression, and I go see my doctor, I have a social worker, I go to my AA, NA in the mornings, from 6:45 to 8 o'clock to 9. Then I see my social worker, and, we talk about what was today, Thank you.
My name is Barry. I'm part of the Creek Bridge community. And I did go to the Beacon Hill meeting, and it was a disaster. Too many of those speaking were patting each other in the back by not listening to those who want to speak. The one thing I wanted to say was a quote from my dad, and he said it about 50 years ago, "No child should go to bed hungry." Having said that, I do back housing for the homeless and the children, but I just don't agree that they both should go near Creek Bridge or that area. It would be better to locate one of the two someplace else. I do agree that maybe the one on Natividad would be a good place. The one for the shelter, I don't understand why you can't rebuild the one on 111 West Alisal Street, or do something else with it, like turning it into a job training center for those who need it, including the veterans. Thanks very much.
Good evening. My name is Dominic Dursa. I live over here on the south side. I just wanted to speak to this issue of the roll call that seems to get taken in the game that gets played. So often when an issue like this comes out, people will ask, well, where are the people? They didn't show up. Today they showed up. 2 separate issues, a lot of people showed up. And their time gets cut. that some people even get accused of their comments getting written, and on another issue, groups get called out. I know you're better than this, Mayor. We've talked enough times. I know you're better than this. So let's not play this game of who's here when, and when do they show up, because when they show up, the time gets cut. So how do you want it? How do you want people to speak to you? Because these people certainly are showing up tonight. These groups that you mentioned, they've certainly been out there in the community. So how does this need to be done? Set us what standard you want. Because I don't like seeing these shots. The other side doesn't too. I don't like it. So just what do we have to do to be heard? Thank you.
My name is Yolanda Hayes. I am a Creek Bridge resident, and I am very, I communicate a lot on Nextdoor. I've gotten a lot of feedback about this issue. Most of them are against having the location there. I do appreciate the city and the county working together. I know we met with Supervisor Alejo and also Supervisor Phillips, and Supervisor Alejo, as soon as we met with him within the next week, he walked the creek and he talked to a lot of the homeless. So he was very active and he was very supportive. Little did we know that a decision was being made to use this location on Laurel for the homeless shelter. We're not opposed to having the homeless. We're opposed of the lack of security that there will be at this area. Right now we call the police for situations and they don't come. So I'm really interested in finding out if this area can be moved. I heard about the Victory Mission, that can be rebuilt. Why spend all that money on Laurel? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Albert Maldonado. First of all, I applaud you, the City Council and the Mayor for all the work that you have to do and the difficult decisions that you have to make, especially on a topic like homeless. Firsthand, I deal with the homeless on a daily basis. I own a print shop here in downtown Salinas, and I have to clean up after them, if not on a daily basis, every other day. And please don't sugarcoat the problem. There is going to be a problem no matter where you move the shelter to. So please keep that in mind. And then also, you will be affecting the home values around the Creek Bridge area. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Jaime Quesada. I'm a Creek Bridge resident. I thank you for listening to our situation, and I have nothing against where it's being located at. It's just more likely, being as a resident at Creek Bridge, my property taxes are very high, and having that unit being there, it's something that I might consider myself to not continue be living there. Just be going someplace else that feel more comfortable and not to be hiding for something that my children or the family will be against that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Verónica Torres. Yo
My name is Veronica Torres,
tengo 28 años viviendo aquí en Salinas. Siempre he vivido por el este.
and I've been living here in Salinas for 28 years. I've always lived in the east part of town.
Y siempre pues he vivido por esas calles y ya nunca había visto tanta gente pues así en esas condiciones de ahorita que lo estamos viviendo allí. Yo no tengo nada contra esas personas, yo son seres humanos, pero ahorita pues por los niños es un peligro y más aparte pues que ya somos muchos allí, no hay muchas viviendas y pues esto es pues un problema para los niños más que van a la escuela y más que hay niños que van solos.
And I've lived in that area for 28 years, and I had never seen as many people as I've seen now there in that area. I have nothing against homeless people. They're humans also, but I am very concerned about the children and the children who are walking in that area.
Y pues es lo único que les pedimos pues que se pueden buscarles un lugar o otro, no sé, pero pues
And the only thing we're asking is for you to see if you can find a different location.
Y pues yo lo único que les pido pues es que piensen un poquito más las cosas. Yo siempre he andado en la comunidad y a mí me preocupa mucho mi comunidad.
I only ask that you consider this and you look for a better location. I've always been a person who has been very involved with the community, and I am very concerned about my community.
Que pasen buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jeff Taylor. I'm a concerned community citizen. I just had some points is that the emergency shelter that's being proposed is only for 80 to 100 beds, which is just 10% more than the existing emergency shelter, which has been at full capacity, as others have said, all year round. It has a 30-30-30 ratio of children, women, and men. Is that largely families, all families, or is that single men?
It's families and single men.
Okay.
And single men.
But my point is that a new homeless shelter, emergency homeless shelter of only 10% more is woefully inadequate. There is a secondary solution, is that this new shelter could be for families exclusively, and Victory Mission has offered to build on that lot that they bought a new facility at no cost to taxpayers if the city would release them of the obligation of having to pay a cleanup fee, which was absorbed in it. Please have that discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think I'm last. My name's Tom. I live over there where they're talking about East Salinas. And I think this is awesome. I think Anastasia, I think what are your handling? This is a no-brainer. The land, the money, we got to do it now. There's schools right across the street. There's parks right there. There's medical service. There's social work. This is a no-brainer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm actually a resident of Laurel Heights, and we're really close to where this is taking place. And as it is right now, we have so many people living, even in Cesar Chavez Park. And I personally have called, the city to come, and I don't see anything being happening. Also, you stated that the budget is taking place and it's being funded, but after it takes place, where is the money coming from? Where is it going to maintain itself from? So,
You can talk to her afterwards.
okay.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Gunter, members of the council. First of all, I want to thank our clients at the shelter for sticking around for 2 or 3 hours. I did promise them they'd have a hot meal when they get back there. Tonight, well, first of all, my name is Jesse Armenta. I'm the shelter manager for the Salinas Winter Warming Shelter at 111 West Alisal Street. This is my second year operating the facility. And as a manager, one of the things that we, in terms of intake process, I wanted to address the issue of safety and security. I certainly respect the comments that were provided by the homeowners and some of the other residents of East Salinas. As a person that works and have been working in the community for many, many decades, I've had the opportunity in this 2-year period to work in close hand-to-hand, get to know a lot of these individuals that stay at our shelter. We average approximately 70 people per night. About a third or sometimes a half are children. A lot of these children are going to school, so we have some infants there. And I just want to share that there's many faces of homelessness. I know the perception out there are individuals that have a real serious substance abuse or alcohol abuse problem. One of the things that we do at the facility is that we screen everyone that comes into the facility. We have an agreement that has about 18 points. It's all related to safety. No sexual harassment is permitted. We run 2 nighties on every person that comes into the facility.
Thank you, Mr. Armenta. Your minute's up.
Excuse me?
Your minute's up already.
Oh, so just in closing, I just want to say that we take our job seriously. We try to make sure our number one mission is to make sure the safety of all the clients that stay in our facility. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Misa Flores. I myself am a member of the Laurel Heights community out there. One of the things we talked about was safety. Right down the street, there's a huge soccer complex. Walking down here to the meeting today, not even half a block away, I found a needle on the ground. What guarantees do you have that there won't be that in the field when there's kids practicing or playing soccer out there on the fields? It sounds like we're trying to take advantage of the money, and of course, I'm all for it, but we're not really prepared for that. I think there's other things we can explore, other solutions for this, and I feel like there can be something else being done.
Thank you. Seeing no one else, we will now close it. We'll close public comment. You can have a seat, Anastasia. The council members will make comments. I'll start with Councilwoman Craig.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So really appreciate everyone that has come out to speak both for and against the topic. One of the things that Mr. Dursa pointed out, we were talking about the fiscal sustainability of the organization of the city a few weeks ago, and I think we had 6 people in the audience. And so a greater issue such as homelessness certainly brings out both residents and advocates. And I appreciate the level of concern, the level of care, and certainly the level of involvement. I recognize everybody has something better to do on a Tuesday night at 7 p.m. So thank you very much. Couple of things just for context, and I won't go too far back into the history of this, but the city of Salinas since 2012 has been addressing the homeless issue. And when I say addressing the homeless issue, I mean putting money where our mouth is. And I credit Mayor Joe Gunter for that, because before then, there was $0 allotted in our city general fund for addressing the homeless issue here in Salinas. And so for the last 5 years, really sort of, and I'm gonna be abrupt, but putting a Band-Aid on it by just keeping a temporary shelter open really was not solving homelessness. It's really impossible to solve homelessness. Homelessness is a mental health issue. Homelessness is a drug issue. Homelessness is a housing issue. Homelessness is a health and social services issue. It's a very comprehensive and complex concern in our community, and it continues to grow. I have to, as I had said earlier, I have to laud Supervisor Phillips and Supervisor Alejo. The two of you listened to the community, listened to the council, listened to the concerns, and did something about it, and turned the county around into being proactive about long-term solutions. So thank you for that. Yeah, that's worth a clap. I recognize that there is no perfect place to put a temporary, or to put a homeless shelter, or to put permanent supportive or transitional housing in this city. And believe me, this council, different members of this council, different members at the county staff on both sides looked at all areas, looked at North Salinas, looked at South Salinas, looked at East Salinas, looked at West Salinas. And really what made the most sense was to make it available for services for the homeless community, and really putting it in a place that was walkable, that was easy for transportation. There are children all over the city. There are residents all over the city. I do want to acknowledge, and this is my moment to call out the cities on the peninsula. It's time to put money towards homelessness. Okay? The city of Salinas has been putting money towards homelessness for quite some time. There's too much hand-wringing going on, and oh gosh, it's a housing issue, oh gosh. It's time for the cities on the Monterey Peninsula to put money towards homelessness. I want to acknowledge my concern over our temporary warming shelter costs. It's what I brought up initially, I think 2 hours ago when we were doing the original questions. $200,000 in ESG funds. The math I look at, we will have that temporary warming shelter open for 18 months until April of 2020 when the first shelter is built. That equals $720,000. So I'm hoping that we either get state or federal grant money to offset those costs. I know the city is working at a structural deficit. I know the county is working at a structural deficit. And I certainly don't want delays in construction and things like that to start to eat into general fund money. That's a concern. But I have to say, this is an amazing opportunity for both the city and the county and for all residents to recognize that we are providing services for all residents in the city. I'm happy to move the resolution to, one, develop and operate a new homeless shelter, to create an MOU with the county to develop and operate a new homeless shelter at 855 East Laurel, to develop a permanent supportive transitional housing at 1220 Natividad, and to continue the operations of a temporary warming shelter at 111 West Alisal Street.
Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Villegas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anastasia, thank you for your team and all their hard work. Yes, the little girl was right. She does have a hard job. A lot of hard work has been done, and there will be more going forward even after tonight, after we vote. Thank all the people that came down to voice their opinions and concerns. And the reality is, over the years, we've been playing whack-a-mole with the homeless situation for years. It's unfair to the homeless, the residents, our entire community. In Creek Bridge, the homeless had their encampment built in the levee where the city and county just cleaned it up at a huge cost, and the county committed to help paying for those costs. While we have Supervisor Alejo here, can we give him the bill? But we appreciate the county and everything they're doing to help us with this. This is a community problem. Now we want to do something that will effectively deal with the issue to actually help people get out of homelessness. A lot of people are up in arms about the location. It's like that NIMBY attitude, not in my backyard. A lot of this has happened. This homeless situation did not happen overnight. It has been years and decades in the making of ineffective leadership at the county level, at the city level, and now we're going to deal with it. People voted, people like myself, Supervisor Alejo, in to make this community safer. Homelessness is a big issue. It always has been in this area ever since I came out here from Michigan. So the location, as Councilmember Craig has stated, first of all, it's the closest to the county services that the homeless need, i.e. hospitals, mental health services, which is very important and critical in this endeavor that we're taking, substance abuse services, and the like. The city doesn't have those types of services, and being partnered with the county is a critical path in getting any effective help to those most in need. It is on county land. It doesn't cost the taxpayers any more money. They've already voted to be able to, the council, or the Board of Supervisors have already voted on this generously to put these pieces of land to use in an area that is mainly away from most of the housing. It's right down by Carr Lake, okay? It's not like we have daycares right next door. County and city officials realize this would be an effective manner in dealing with the homeless problem by centralizing it and versus having the homeless scattered throughout the city, where then all the residents start complaining. And that's what we've had. If you ever went down to, hopefully some of you Creek Bridge residents got a chance to walk down before they cleaned it up. It was horrible. I went down there on a ride along during the summer with a couple, Officer Avila, and I forgot the other gentleman's name. They showed me. It was horrible. And this is what people are talking about you know, they're saying, well, BRB, they're having all these problems and everything. Well, guess what? We're trying to take care of that. We don't want them scattered throughout the city. The other thing is, you better talk to your boards also. La señora, ofrecemos la mesa directiva, SRO officers en sus escuelas. Hablan con ellos porque ellos votó no en el año pasado. Eso es la realidad. Okay, podemos dar la gente ayuda, pues los mesas directivas no le gusta los SROs en las escuelas. Entonces, ¿qué podemos hacer entonces? Okay. Now, and we do have money for the SROs. We do. Every community, people watching on TV, talk to your boards. Every board, the high school board, the Alisal board, voted it down unanimously. Santa Rita, Dr. Moore, board member Neil Patel, they took us up on the SRO offer. They've been over there. We're going to have a presentation probably in the next board city council meeting to tell you how well it's been going. They've been having a lot of success over there with those kids and being able to mentor them. They're doing the work that the city has the money to do. This is a community problem. We're trying to be here to push forward policy that will help us. I had a board president bring up the concerns to me, and I addressed each one of those concerns due to misinformation, rumors, and innuendos, and those there to garner opposition to what the county and the city are doing. We're not going to sweep it under the rug. We're not going to sit there and play whack-a-mole anymore. We're going to deal with it. That's what we're elected to do. Whether you like it or not, there will be a decision made. Thank you for showing up tonight and voicing your concerns, but we're not going to sit there and just push it down the road and have an even bigger problem and increase our homelessness another 50-something% in the years to come. There's a lot of hand-wringing about this, but not anymore. Knowing the facts, this is good policy. Get people that need a hand up, that they need to effectively get people off the streets and into permanent housing. He had real concerns about it. I told him to remind his board, school resource officer money is still available. We have the officers, we're hiring, and we're doing great work out there. The chief of police, the police department, you want to go see the SROs in action? Go down to Santa Rita, talk to Officer Richard Lopez or Lindo Sanchez. They're the SRO officers over there that are mentoring our kids. I appreciate all the services our faith-based community has done and will need them to continue as we work towards our goal. Homelessness will never be solved, but we can mitigate it to where it's not going to be a big problem. With that said, I've publicly stated this before. I want all the homeless providers that render services to our homeless to go out of business. Not because I hate them or that I don't want them. It means that we have, as leaders, as elected leaders, have effectively pushed forward policies to mitigate it so their services are no longer needed. People need to judge policies by the result, not their intent. And like I said before, if you judged our policies on homeless, we spent $4 million over the past 5 years. If you measured our policies, you would think that our goal was to increase homeless population. We did a bang-up job on that, didn't we? Now it's done. We need to do something. And I've said to the mayor and people on this council and in the subcommittee meetings, I will not vote for things that are not going to effectively help these people, get them off the streets and give them a hand up and get them to more permanent housing. It needs to be in their mission statement. And people have a right to be scared and concerned. You look at Creek Bridge and the homeless encampment, that was very unsafe, but this offers us an opportunity to make this area safer. Scott Davis and I have had meetings. We've been on at Twin Creeks Golf Course earlier this year where residents of Creek Bridge were invited and discussed the homeless situation among other issues. We had a packed house. We had the chief of police there. We had Mr. Pia, we had the mayor came down. We had a lot of people, and there was a lot of good dialogue and discussion. Okay, I'll attend any meeting, but be respectful of my time and yours and invite me with enough notice, not at the last minute. I thank the Monterey County Board of Supervisors for their hard work, their leadership. I know Supervisor Alejo and Judge Phillips have been working on getting this done. Not just for the county, but for the community. Because our community needs it. I shared my game plan with them on homelessness with members of this council. I hope they found some good ideas in there that we can implement. I think we as a community have been ineffective in regards to this, but that's all right. We're not going to be right all the time. But the only thing worse than being wrong is staying wrong. And with an affirmative vote tonight, we will not stay wrong with the most vulnerable people in our community, the homeless. The residents hesitate or oppose to the homeless shelter and transitional housing. All I can say is it's going to be run well. It's going to be a state-of-the-art facility. If you want to see what Salinas and the county can do together when we partner, go down to Moongate Plaza or one of the other sites that we partner with. They're top-notch. It's not going to be done half-heartedly because we all have a stake in seeing this being successful for our homeless population and our community and our kids. This problem wasn't created overnight, nor will it be solved overnight. We have never done anything like this before, so I'm sure there will be growing pains. And we'll learn quickly and we'll adjust accordingly to address those issues, especially those of the residents. If we don't do this now, it may be maybe decades before we ever see an opportunity like this again to do something to effectively deal with a problem that has been so ineffectively dealt with for many, many years and decades. But as we all know, one of us is going to help this be successful. It'll be the county, it'll be the city, it'll be the residents. This is a thing where we're going to have shared sacrifice, guys. That's the reality of our situation. We're all in the same boat together, and it's not going to change. Let's get this done. We got a second on the motion, and I implore my colleagues here on the dais to support and get behind this. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember McShane.
Yeah, very briefly, this MOU and the steps ahead of us represent an incredible opportunity for all levels of government to work together, which in my opinion might be a first. 45 days ago, you couldn't get the mayor and Supervisor Alejo in the same room, and here they are ready to go drink beers together. The reality of it is, ultimately you'll have the federal government, the state government, the county government, and the city government working in tandem for one of our most pressing priorities as a council, housing and homelessness. So in the words of Councilwoman Craig, it's an amazing opportunity for the city and the county. I'd argue all levels of government ultimately, and we'd be stupid to pass this up. There's always a better place, there's always a better plan, but the truth of the matter is Salinas has seen the lion's share of homelessness and will continue to see the lion's share of homelessness if we don't work together. So, that's all.
Councilmember Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Craig put it very well, and I've been saying it for quite some time, is homelessness isn't the problem. It's the result of other problems. Drug abuse, alcohol abuse, mental health illness. But what we've been doing constantly throughout the city is throwing money at a problem with no plan. $5 million, I think, is the actual number in 4 years in cleanups. We just spent $200,000 cleaning up the Creek Bridge Park and that the drainage ditch behind there. But what I'm kind of disappointed, well, let me stop there. I'm going to go back, and at the meeting on the 1st, I was actually very impressed that Superintendent Dan Burns of the Salinas Union High School District stepped up and in public said that he's supportive of this, and he wants a seat at the table so they can start discussing how to work together with the city and the county. Also in attendance was the trustee Fernando Mercado with the Alisal Union School District, who had asked that the school district and have Dr. Hector Rico would be interested. So Anastasia, please reach out to those two and make sure that they're included and they have a seat at the table, because I feel that this is a problem that we need to work together on, both at the county, the city, and with the local school districts. And a lot of the parents from the Alisal Union School District were here today, and they had concerns over safety and security of their students, and everybody up here. Not one council member, not the mayor, takes that lightly. But I find it kind of hypocritical that the Alisal Union School District votes no on school resource officers because of, for whatever political reason that they voted no. But yet we have parents today complaining about the safety of their students in that school district. And the hypocrisy that I see in some members of our community is disappointing. It's disappointing to see people continually stereotyping other groups of people, whether it's their race, creed, national origin, sexual orientation, or social economic status. We see it at the national level, and yet, looking in this room, I'm seeing it today. But today, it's homeless. We've labeled the homeless population, we've painted them with a broad brush, and we have in our mind what a homeless person is, and we've demonized them. Anastasia actually had the statistics, 605 are chronically homeless, and she even admits those ones are probably not going to be able to be housed. Those are the people that are most likely the ones you're seeing in the Chinatown area selling the drugs. Those are the ones that you see setting up encampments in the drainage ditches in our parks. Not the other 3,000, 4,000 homeless that you don't see. I have a unique opportunity in my day job, or kind of like my afternoon night job, because I start at 3 and I end at 1, but to see people at their worst. And I've been doing it for over 15 years. More so now than ever, we deal a lot with mental health illness, and we deal a lot with our homeless. So it's a problem that's gotten worse. It hasn't gotten any better. Proposition 64, voters passed, made marijuana illegal. It's probably why you're smelling more marijuana in your neighborhoods. Prop 47, it used to be a felony to be in possession of heroin, methamphetamine, or cocaine. It's now a misdemeanor. That's why you're not seeing people going to prison or taking advantage of what was Prop 36, which was drug rehabilitation. That was passed by the voters. SB 10 was just passed by the voters, which basically got rid of bail. So now anybody in our county jails will be violent felons. Anything less than a violent felony will be out on our streets. So we have to really pay attention as voters to make sure that when we're voting on stuff, we fully understand it. Because these are some of the unintended consequences of increased drug use. Yet we villainize and we point the finger at the police department because they're not doing their job. But we fail to understand is that their hands have been tied by the legislative actions and the propositions that have been passed by the voters. The police department, the sheriff's office, any other law enforcement in the state of California works for the residents. Through the ordinances that are passed by this council, the chief of police, her job is to make sure that her officers enforce the ordinances, enforce the state laws. But when the voters go and they overturn these laws and we wonder why we have such an increase in drug abuse, it's because it's no longer a crime. There's no punishment for it. There's no incentive for someone to go through Prop 36 drug rehabilitation to get that felony expunged off their record. And then on top of that, it's illegal. An officer cannot arrest somebody for a misdemeanor unless they physically see it happen in their presence. So these and the other issues that we see in our community are the results of some of the laws that we have recently passed in the state of California. Voter passed, not by any type of municipal government body. Moving forward, I'm about solutions. We can sit here and we can talk about this problem that's been on since the beginning of the United States in New York. Homelessness hasn't gone away, yet we have some of the best institutions like MIT, Harvard, and yet we can't figure out how to solve a solution. Well, maybe because it's a difficult solution to solve, and even the brightest minds across the United States haven't been able to figure out a solution that works. So we're doing the best that we can up here, but we have to keep in mind that we have to do what's best for everybody. We can't continue going down Salinas with Chinatown growing. The tents popping up. It's just not gonna work anymore. And to sit there and throw money down the drain to do cleanups so we can make sure that it's safe and clean so that we don't have the Hep A outbreak like they did in Orange County. $5 million in 4 years on cleanups, basically. That's a lot of money. That could have been a lot of potholes fixed in our streets. So we have a lot of issues, we have a lot of challenges. We have a huge budgetary challenge with the city of Salinas with PERS. Again, something that's not the city's responsibility. Nobody up here voted for it. That was dropped in our laps by the state, but we have to fix it. We have to figure out how to make the best of what we have and with what little money we have to make a better community for everyone. So this is a good opportunity to take a look at ourselves and, number one, make sure that we don't like to be stereotyped. Maybe we should start stereotyping others. Hitler did it in 1942 with the Jews. Let's not repeat history. Let's learn from our mistakes. Let's not criticize one half and then turn around and do it ourselves, right? If you live in glass houses, don't throw stones. So we have to recognize that there are people out there that need help. There are a lot of children that need help. 30 students in every class. Out of every 30 students in a class, 10 of them are homeless. 10 students are homeless, and we wonder why we have such low test scores and why students can't focus on classes when they're hungry, or they're moving around, or they can't have clean clothes, so they get bullied in school. It goes on and on and on. But there's nothing that's too big that we as a community can't put our heads together and solve. As long as there's a will to fix it, we can fix it. But not myself, not any single person on this council, not any board of supervisor can do it by themselves. To make sure it's successful, we need the community involvement. To make sure that we can solve our crimes, we need community involvement. We need people to call in. If you see something, say something, report it. If the cops don't show up, call the assistant chief. He'll give you out his personal phone number. He's done it a lot. He comes to community meetings all the time, and I have to hand it to him. He's here today because he cares about this community. Everybody up here cares about this community, and everyone in this room cares about the community, or you wouldn't be here. And that's the bottom line. But we have to figure out a solution because what we're doing isn't working, and we keep wasting money. Thank you.
Councilmember Brewer.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Jesse Armenta, I think the best thing I heard throughout this whole meeting is that you're providing your guests a hot meal. I think I'm going to join you guys, boy. I'm looking forward to a good hot meal. I appreciate the work you're doing, Mr. Armenta. I know your heart's in it. Mr. Corpus, this is where you and I are going to disagree. You're inviting the community for conversation, and I totally agree with you on that one. But you know, I think anytime any one of us, whether we're a father, a mother, a grandparent, a child, we all like to be listened when we have something to say. We really do, because it's important. A child's, mom, oh, espérate, not right now. But whatever that child wants to say, it's important. I remember Mr. Cortez when he told me, you know what, my wife and my baby were bringing me lunch one day to my place of work in Chinatown. And there was a person that was high on something. Again, not a bad person, but they were high on substance. And they scared my wife. And that's when I found out I need to get out of here. And here's a man that's been a partner of the city for over 30 years, him and his dad, small business owner, creating jobs for other people as well. And he's selling his business. Not because he wants to leave, but because the reality is he wants his family to be safe. We all want to be heard. And everything we have to say is very important, whether we agree or disagree. I'm just going to say just one quick thing here on this report from Ms. Megan Hunter. Since the Finance Committee meeting on September 17th, which that was the first time I heard about the site of the shelter, whether people want to believe it or not. That's the first time I heard about it. I heard about 1220 Natividad because we went over there, we got excited about the site. There was revival. I mean, everybody was excited, county, city, and all the partners that were there. And I understand as things progress, other ideas come up. After the September 17th, and I'm reading from the report, multiple community stakeholders have expressed concern, whether merchants, whether house owners, whatever. Stakeholders expressed concern particularly related to the proposal to develop a shelter at 855 East Laurel Drive. Unfortunately, and this is in the report, there has been substantial misinformation provided to the public regarding the shelter. And I know one side's going to say, well, because they were listening to people they shouldn't have been listening to. Well, you know what? We all listen to rumors, and we perceive them as facts. But my God, if you're investing in a $500,000 home, Max Shane wants that temporary shelter gone right now. But he's going to have to get stuck with it for 2 years. He's going to have to talk to Sia about that.
18 months.
18 months. He would love it to go over there. Why is that? Why not keep it there and see? And this NIMBY thing, I don't know where that comes from. We all want a better quality of life for our family, regardless of how that looks for you. You invest in a piece of property because you want to live there, you want to enjoy it, you want to retire there. My last thing here today, some of these votes that we have up here, they're going to you're going to consider us champions, or you're going to consider us the opposite of what champions is in your vocabulary. Now, this last thought, we do need to work together. My concern here is now the city manager wants to bring conversation, and I know the mayor is going to get upset with this one too, but it's all right, I don't work for him, I work for you. Now we were going to invite you into conversation because we got the site already. And let's dialogue, see how we want to paint it. What windows would you like on there? And you know who's going to win? Whoever decides it's going to be your investment. You really are. So I hope that however the vote goes tonight, I hope you remember that we still need to work together for a better community. Thank you.
Councilwoman De La Rosa.
Yes. It's a very, very difficult situation, a very difficult vote tonight. But I have to remind the community that I serve, and in the Laurel Heights area, we have homeless camping out, starting fires. We have homeless Cesar Chavez Park that some of my residents from Hebron Heights cannot even walk sometimes around the park. Sherwood Park that I represent, District 4 takes up all that area. I have people living in Sherwood Park. Rossi Rico that I represent, I have complaints about the homeless. And of course, I represent my residents from Chinatown. So I have to also remind the community that it's not just substance abuse users that are out there. It's people, families that have been kicked out of garages. Our rents are so high. We have lack of housing. And guess what? They're living in cars right now. As a public health nurse that I retired a year ago, I used to work with these families. I had to try to refer them to shelters. It was sad. It was really sad because we didn't have any, unless I was going to refer them to Soledad Street. And these were working women. Some of them were single with babies. So remember that. Remember that. You know, so my issue tonight is we've heard the community, we've heard them speak. Some of you are my friends, and it's like Councilmember Barrera just said, you might not like my vote. I had to pray about it, really. But I gotta say, we have to work together. We listen to you, And guess what? I would like to see an addition that exactly what the community said. Angie, you said it, and others. We need to include law enforcement. Anastasia, where are you? Law enforcement has to be included in there. All these school districts, there's so many in the city. I don't know why there isn't one, but we've got Alisal, we've got Salinas City has to be included. The high school district has to be included. They have to come to the table. The parents have to come to the table. All the agencies that you mentioned, and any neighborhood groups like Laurel Heights, we need to come together. We need to listen to them. And I would not like to go, I would not like to see another issue, Mayor, come forward to this council without going out to the public. Please, I don't like this. So again, we need to work together. And when people talk about Chinatown, all of you need to know we're trying to revitalize your tax-paying monies. That's what's making Mid-Peninsula happen. The cleanup of Chinatown, the businesses like Mr. Cortez, guess what? We've been putting money out there. Those businesses also need police out there. They need to be taken care of. They're tired of all the tents that are out there. So I need to listen to everybody. So again, let's work together on this solution. Like we've all said, we've got to work together as a community, and we've got to take advantage of that money. It also will affect San Benito County if we don't approve it. That's what Anastasia said, right? Okay, thank you.
33 children. It may not mean a lot to a lot of people. As everybody up here worries about their property values, worries about the fact that we have homeless that are already in Natividad Creek Park that we need to remove. We've removed some down there by the gully where they did the little cleanup that cost a couple of $100,000. And trust me, I take all the criticism for anything we've done with the homeless the last 5 years, considering 90% of that money was used on cleanups, helping fill up the dump with garbage that our good citizens decided the homeless needed, including couches that they dropped off in rainstorms that they wouldn't let their dogs sleep on. But I looked at those children at the warming shelter not long ago, and I thought, not doing a very good job as the mayor that when you let a child sleep on a mat in a double-wide trailer, kind of reminded me of my heritage being an old redneck guy. Those double-wides, what we all lived in, thought we were upscale. We didn't have Toro Park in Sierra Village and Corral de Tierra. That's what people lived in, but they didn't put their children on the floor. They didn't wait for somebody to say, we can get you a $3 meal and tell you you're going to like it. And tomorrow morning at 7 a.m., I'm going to boot you out and you're going to take your child to school. And God willing, you go to a school that has a free lunch because we don't have any money to buy you lunch. So we've kind of failed some of the folks. And I realize I've heard about the homeless that are drug addicts, the ones that are mentally ill. But how about those folks that are trying to make it? We as a community have a responsibility to all of you. And we have a responsibility, and when we talk about security, and Angie, you're right, San Benito County put in their grant for law enforcement security. That's what they wrote in their grant, and that's what we're going to write into our grant, to make sure that we have an officer that's working on that issue. But then we're all going to work together to improve what occurs, because I think if we get these folks, some of these folks just need that hand to get them to social services, and we need to get those ones into the health department. And I have talked to Victory Outreach about the men and how we can get them into a different program. I can see there's an opportunity here. This is going to be an opportunity for all of us, and we're all going to learn as we go. And is there going to be mistakes? I have no doubt. And I know that I've heard council members say, the mayor's going to be mad. The only thing I'm mad about is we've kind of failed ourselves as a community. that we have so many. But I am hot on the other mayors about their lack of doing their job with the number of homeless they have. Supervisor Alejo has had the opportunity to hear this speech at a meeting. I'm sure he's thinking, God, don't let him go on what he's told them. I told them they have responsibilities, not to us, but to their own people, because they have homeless. We have 4,000 children sleeping in cars tonight, sleeping in motels that are rented by somebody else. We have some work to do, and we have to do it as a community. City Clerk, let's call for the vote, and let's hope all those communities and groups that I mentioned that all say they want to be involved, they want to have meetings, will have the courage to step up and come work with us.
Right. I have a motion from Councilmember Craig and second by Councilmember McShane. Councilmember Barrera?
No.
Councilmember Craig?
Yes.
Councilmember Davis?
Yes.
Councilmember De La Rosa?
Yes.
Councilmember McShane?
Yes.
Councilmember Villegas?
Yes.
Mayor Gunter?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.